I'm Clare Ryan, and I'm currently completing a clinical doctoral research fellowship that's funded by the NIHR and Health Education England. So as a part of my fellowship, I've continued a small role in practice as a clinical physiotherapy specialist, and that's with Solent NHS Trust. So what Emma and the RDS have asked me to talk about today is how I really made that transition to starting to work towards a clinical academic role. So in this first slide, I've outlined the key steps that I've taken over the past 7 years. So for me, my research journey began back in 2014. At this point, I was an established clinical specialist physiotherapist and really looking to offer something different professionally. Excuse me. So I really wanted to be able to start to contribute to the national picture within my clinical area, and also to be able to deliver more at a service level. So to start to be able to inform practice with research. So around this time, I became aware of the work of a couple of really inspirational clinical academics and also of the NIHR pathway, and felt that this was very much the direction I wanted to move in, and also an infrastructure that would enable me to do this. So at that time, the first step on the NIHR clinical academic pathway was the MRes. So to work up a research proposal, what I did at this point was reach out to one of the clinical academics I'd come across, and she really kindly helped me to work up my research proposal, and also to understand what skills and experience I needed to evidence on the application to stand a chance of being successful. Now, working with a clinical academic who was really familiar with the pathway at that stage was really useful in helping me to work up a project that would be useful and enable me to be competitive, not just at that stage of the MRes, but also to be able to produce research outputs, so presentations and publications that would be really necessary as I moved forward through the pathway. So I completed the MRes over 2 years part-time alongside a role in practice, and this programme was really useful in helping me to develop my academic skills and to better understand the research landscape, so research processes as well as research methods. It also enabled me to start to develop my network of clinical academic peers, and that's been really important and underpinned this process for me. During this time, I also attended the NIHR conference, and that was really useful in helping me to be able to understand their offer, and again, what I would need to be able to achieve to be competitive at the next stage. But finally, the most important thing for me during that time was undertaking this research project. Having completed the MRes, I was very aware that I still had quite a lot of work to do in order to be sufficiently competitive to have a chance of gaining doctoral level funding. So I therefore had a transition period, and as part of this applied for and gained a transition award from Health Education England from Wessex. And I used this time to really start to strengthen my research portfolio. So I focused on getting some research outputs, so both delivering some of these and also working some up for later, working at my fellowship application, and also starting to position myself as a clinical academic within my trust and within my clinical role. So with that, starting to look for leadership opportunities and service development opportunities, and really starting to build my relationship with my manager and clinical director and the research and improvement department. So to work up my fellowship alongside with working with my academic supervisors, I also reached out to subject experts. I undertook some PPI work, and also reached out to outside organisations. So the Clinical Research Network were great in helping me to understand the NIHR offer around supporting recruitment and how to budget for that in my application. And the RDS provided some really robust methods feedback and also feedback on my completed application, and they then teamed with the University of Southampton later to provide a really helpful mock interview just prior to my fellowship interview. At that stage, I also reached out to my peers who'd already been successful in gaining doctoral level funding to understand what they felt had helped them to be competitive. So that transition period for me between completing the NRES and gaining doctoral funding, or submitting my doctoral funding application, was 18 months, and it was a real period of ups and downs. So during that time I had to completely rework my PhD question twice, and I also had several rejections, both from journals and for some internal grant funding from my trust. And I now know that reworking, restructuring things is just absolutely part of the process. So finally, what are the key things that I think have helped me along the way? Knowing what's required at each stage, and really taking the time to strengthen my academic portfolio to be able to achieve that, and really reaching out for help in order to be competitive and to be able to develop. And finally, really taking care of those relationships, and particularly those that act as gatekeepers within the clinical academic workplace. So thank you, and like Mark, my email is on there, and I'm more than happy for people to reach